Welcome to another episode of the Misfit Entrepreneur, where it is our job to help you unleash your inner misfit and break through to higher levels of success, wealth, and fulfillment by bringing you the best insight and information from the world's top entrepreneurs, with a specific focus on their misfit side, the specific traits, habits, and secrets that have allowed them to thrive and succeed. As a reminder, if you're new to watching us on our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button below. Give this video a like and comment as well. We do our best to respond to all comments as timely as possible. This week's Misfit Entrepreneur is Michael Tucker. Michael is the CEO and founder of Funnel Pros, a full-fledged marketing and growth agency specializing in virtual events. They're unique in that they provide all the manpower, the strategy, and resources that clients need to maximize the success of a virtual event online. In fact, over the last few years, the company's helped clients generate over $40 million in online sales. As more and more selling is done online, one of the best ways to grow your business is through online events. And I've been looking for an expert to come on the show and share the best practices on how to put on a great virtual event and do this right. So let's jump in. Michael, are you ready to unleash your inner misfit?
Dave, I'm ready, man. Let's get going.
Hey, it's a pleasure to have you on. And as we do with every guest that comes on the show, let's start with your story. Take 5 minutes or so and just tell us, how'd you get to where you're at? How'd you get to doing these virtual events and everything that you do?
Man, I never thought I'd be in the virtual event industry. And before we jump into that, I just want to say, man, thank you so much for opening up your platform for me. I don't take that lightly. But you know, how we dove into this platform was I was in college. Okay. I was in college, just gotten married, was looking for the thing that was going to bring me success. I actually graduated college and I didn't know. I said, you know what? I have no clue what I'm doing. I got this degree now. What's next? And so I went out there searching for anything and everything like I could to make some money. And I was working part-time as a youth minister at my local church, but I just needed something. So I was trying stock trading, e-commerce. You know, that thing called shiny object syndrome is real because I would bounce around from thing to thing to thing. And then one day, one of my friends said, Michael, I see you trying a lot of different things. How about you try real estate? And now this isn't about real estate on this talk today, but it was that decision of me saying yes to him that led me to where I am today. You see, I told him, I said, David was his name. I said, David, I don't have any money. Actually, if I jumped into real estate, I think I would probably be not the best fit for this. And he said, well, let me show you how you can do it. And let me coach you. And he said, but here's the thing, I have a coaching fee. I said, David, don't you remember? I just said, I don't have all the most money in the world. And so what we did is we sat down and we bartered. We figured out a way to negotiate a deal so where I would work in his business for free and he would coach me in real estate. And that was one of the best barters I ever made. And a lot of people look and say, Michael, he was using you. You worked in his business for free. But it was amazing because I learned so much about business, so much about marketing. And it was there where I started learning about the funnels and automations and sequences and all these things that make marketing and sales what they are. And from there, we started testing ideas in his business because we were at the ground level. It was a new business. I was new. So he knew I didn't have all the experience in the world. And he said, let's just test stuff. So I got to be, in this laboratory of business, just testing things. And that's where I discovered my love for funnels and my love for virtual events. And so it wasn't always perfect at the beginning. There was a lot of bumped heads and a lot of mistakes made, but it was that journey that got me to where I am today.
Oh, that's awesome. It's interesting to hear you talk about, like, you basically were doing an apprenticeship, and
yeah,
it's for many years, that's how entrepreneurs learned and became entrepreneurs. They apprenticed under somebody and stuff. So it's funny to hear you say things like, oh, he's using you and that stuff. I mean, the knowledge that you gain is what's really worth the money anyways, right? Or worth the time anyway. So it's funny to hear you say that, but it's really true how much those things can pay off multiple times over. I guarantee you would agree that time you spent doing that has paid off a lot more than what you would have been paid if you did it, right?
Right.
So let's jump into online events. Let's start off high level. First, what are the best products to do online events for, and why?
Great question. And I think almost any event can be sold, but I love people who have products they can sell virtually because that's what we're doing, right? We're not running in-person events. We're not selling in-person products. We're selling virtual products. So services like software is really good. So if you're here and you own a SaaS company or a software company, you can use virtual events to sell those. We've done it many, many times. You have coaching programs work amazing. Other info products do very well for us. But just know this can range from anybody that's a speaker, a coach, all the way to I have some real estate agents and life insurance agents that are filling their business with virtual events. And so I think a lot of people, they think in a certain way and they limit themselves, but know that there's really no limit to how you can use these, because it's all about using virtual events just to get your brand and your message out into the world. And so if you have a product, if you have a service, you can find a way to tailor your message and put it into a virtual event. Like a life insurance agent, people would say, Michael, they're using virtual events. Yes, I have one guy. He's selling life insurance weekly on a webinar, and he's getting 100 appointments per week just from a webinar. Crazy. I have agents, real estate agents, going back to that. They're doing events on the best home loan products. They're partnering with lenders. They're becoming trusted agents in their market. So listen, there's so many benefits. So don't limit yourself. But I would say software and info products are my favorite. But you can do this regardless of what industry you're in.
No, that's awesome. All right. So, and that encompasses, I think most businesses have some aspect of those, right? So there is a use case for this in most businesses, I would say. So with that as a backdrop, then what are the keys to having a successful online event? Like what is your top, let's just call it your top 3 pieces of advice to putting on a successful online event?
Yeah. And I'll take you back to some of the mistakes we made when we first started. When we first started running virtual events, one of the mistakes we made was, number one, was teaching and building out content that wasn't relevant to our market. So number one thing I tell people to have a successful event is you need to do some market research and market data on who you're actually going to be bringing into the room. Because our mistake was that we were getting people in the room and we were adding value, right? We thought we were adding value to them, when in reality, we were just bombarding them with too much information. And some of the information wasn't even relevant. We thought it was because we were in our little bubble here. But once we started reaching out and asking people what they wanted, and we started doing our market research, we realized people need something much different and much better. So I would say, number one, you have to figure out what are your potential clients, your potential event registrants, what are their desires? What are they struggling with right now? What are they trying and it's not working? So sit down and actually curate that. And that could be you sending surveys out. That could be, you having somebody on your team do a call for your, the past customers over the past week or two. Take some time to really get that data, because I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but wouldn't you say that there's importance in having that data?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's gold
that's
in all
one
that
thing
data.
Yeah. So that's what we tell people to do at the front, is make sure you're doing your research, but don't get in this phase where you're doing that for months and months and months, because some people will be like, well, Michael, I only got 5 people to give me advice or 10 people to give me feedback. So I don't feel like but no, start where you're at, come up with a strategy, and I promise you it'll pay off in the end. Number 2 is, I'll say, every event, in order for it to be successful, not only do you need to tailor the content to them, I'll say is you have to have an event with the 3 E's. Okay. You're like, Michael, what are the 3 E's? Every event must have, number 1, engagement. You have to get people commenting in the chat. You have to have them taking action some way, somehow. And you look back, I'm sure, Dave, you've attended some virtual events. You've probably been to some that were horrible, right? You're like, I don't know how this person is even, pulling in this many people. Like, but the ones that were really good, they were probably the ones that had a lot of engagement, right? You probably could notice a difference between them. The ones that were horrible probably had no engagement. They were dry. Versus on the other end, the ones that were good, they were building engagement, getting you to think, getting you to take action on something. So the first E out of the 3 is you need to have engagement, right? Number 2 is you need to have energy. Now, I'm not saying you have to be bubbly and over the top and, be at talking at a high pitch and like be all this like all the time, but show up with belief in what you do. Show up that when people enter the room, they're like, wow, this is somebody I want to attach myself to and lock arms with in the future. Because listen, when energy is an attractant, right? Energy, meaning how you portray yourself on camera, how you speak, how you act on camera, can be an attractant to pull people into your business. People are going to be able to tell through the camera or through the microphone if they want to lock arms with you, or they say, you know what, this person's not for me. So we need to show up with engagement, but the right energy. And then lastly, I'll say enthusiasm, right? You need to show up with enough enthusiasm that they see, going back to kind of what I hit on earlier, that you believe in the industry, you believe in the product, that you are all in on it. And if they don't believe that in you, they're not going to go buy your product. They're not going to stay on the entire webinar. But if you show up with those three things, it can be payoff. So I know is this okay? Like, or is this, you understand that, or you feel like this is valuable to your audience? Because I feel like
I do actually a lot of virtual events still, so I can relate to this really well. I think you're hitting the nail on the head with engagement. In fact, best practice, one of the things that I always try to do when I start off a virtual event is get people engaged. I'll ask them questions. Hey, put your answers in the chat or the questions box. And, you guys, I want to make sure that people are engaged and everything else. But then you're right. You have to have a great content and everything, but you have to have that energy to keep people engaged too. Right. And so that's that's another key piece of it. So yeah, all of these make, perfect sense. Easier said than done. Right.
Right.
But I understand why those are the key components. So with that said, then the question becomes like, well, how do you do that? Right. How do you engage people? How do you keep a good energy? So take us through your like best practices for how to do that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to two things. Number one is repetitions. And this is like the cheap answer that a lot of people don't want to hear, right? But it's so true. You have to put in the reps. The first event that we did in David's business, whenever I was an apprentice, right, was horrendous. It was horrible. But what you find out is what people like, what they don't like. If you use softwares like, I think Zoom actually does this. So if you use softwares like Zoom or a webinar jam, they'll actually tell you when people enter and when people leave the Zoom room. So you can maybe take that data. Again, I like data. So if you can say, hey, people are dropping off at this point of the webinar, or, in this, kind of area, then you can figure out, okay, well, around this part, maybe I need to change this portion. So I'll say repetition, number one. But going back to something you said just a minute ago is taking time to craft content, because if you really take the time to craft your presentation the right way, you can build in a lot of these engagement pieces into your slides. You can build a lot of these energy ramp ups into your presentation. Now, do you have to have slides whenever you're doing a virtual event? No. I have clients that have made millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars without slides. I like starting out with slides if you're a beginner, because it can give you a guide and you can kind of have a flow on where you want to go, right? And you can build all those aspects in. You can build in the energy, you can build in the engagement, you can build all of that into your slide. So sit down, once you know that market research, you can build a slide deck, or you can build a presentation. But I'll say this, remember, it's not always about the quantity of the information you're giving them, but it's more about the quality. Right. So when we were first starting, we were told and we were taught that it's all about just giving them as much information as possible in the least amount of time possible. We were like, that was, somebody told me, they said, you just want to give them as much as possible in the hour you have with them. And so what did we do? We went fast. We gave them a lot. And then people left confused. People left overwhelmed. So focus on building out quality content that's going to actually help them get closer to their goals, their desires, and their dreams. So start there, take some time. What I like to do is at least a week or two before your event, at least. if possible, right when you're building out your entire event, start building out the content, right? Meaning when you're coming up with the branding for your event, you're coming up with your marketing plans, go ahead and start on that then so that you have enough time to build your way up into the event and prepare yourself for that event.
No, it's again really good points on that stuff. And I think part of it too is if anybody watching has never done one of these before, practicing it ahead of time is important. All of that, but you get better as you do it. You get a feel for the audience, right? So it's like being one-to-one selling with somebody. You start to get a feel for how they interact and all that type of stuff, and you learn to kind of do it. So it's I think you can be successful with like your first event and stuff, but I think you certainly get better and better as time goes on. And so it's like anything, it's like, like building a muscle, right? You just get better and better at it. In fact, I want to really talk about your process of how you do one of these with all of your teams and everything, and so people can understand it. Okay. So Michael, you've got kind of a unique process where you really take on a lot of it all onto your side for your teams. You even put out the marketing dollars and stuff like that. So take us through your process and how you do things. Like, how do you put on a great event for clients?
Yeah. And what we noticed was when we were building David's business, Dave, when we were first starting in that apprentice, we made him a lot of money in short amount of time, but we realized people kept coming to us and saying, "You guys are running great events. Can you run it for us?" And so we ended up doing that. We built an agency around it, and we built a great team. So number one, I think, and you, Dave, you would attest to this because you've built some really amazing stuff over your lifetime. In order to get great success, you have to have a great team. If you want to go far, you have to build a good team with good processes and systems, right? And so that's what we've done. And so what we do is we bring on a client, and when we build out their events, we do that same process I just started with. We meet with them. We say, okay, hey, what do you teach? What is your niche? What are your clients? What do they deal with? What do they struggle with? What are their dreams? What are their goals? And we sit down and we craft that. But what we do is we start with the end in mind. We put a date on it, okay? We put on a date on it so we can work towards a goal and we can work towards something. You see so many new entrepreneurs, or maybe even existing entrepreneurs, they tend to push off those micro commitments because they say, "I'm not ready," right? And so they'll say, "Hey, I'm not going to put a date on it yet just because I don't know." And then what happens is they never do it. So what we like to do is we like to make a commitment and we put the date down and say, "Okay, this is the event we're shooting for." Or this is the date we're shooting for with this event. And you may say, "Michael, well, how do you determine when I should do my class?" It depends on which strategy you go. We've ran 1 hour webinars for clients. We've run all the way up to 5-6 day events, right? So it depends on how much marketing time you need, how much build out. For us, we run a lot of 5-day virtual events. A lot of people call them 5-day challenges. And the reason why we love these 5-day challenges is because you can spend 5 days with somebody and you can build a crazy amount of reputation with them, crazy amount of trust with them. And so at the end of that 5 days, it's easier to sell a higher ticket product, right? I was listening to one of my friends one day, and he said, for about every hour that you spend with somebody, you have about $1,000 worth of trust with them. And that got me thinking. I was like, okay, for about every hour that I can get somebody to spend with me, I can charge about $1,000 and they'll pay that roughly. Now that's just a rough estimate. And so I was like, okay, well, we run these 5-day events. We can sell higher ticket, right? Because there's more immersion. There's more time with us. Right. And that doesn't always have to be through a virtual event. It's like, okay, how can I increase immersion by them watching my podcast or watching my YouTube channel? And so obviously, going back to the root of this, we set the date, and depending on the products we're selling, if it's a 5-day, a longer event, we'll do like a 30-day promotion period. So we need to build out enough time for us to build the machine, but then on top of that, enough to run our promotion. So we may set a date for 2 months out. But here, if you're here and you're just, you're selling a product that's $500, $1,000, or a service that's $97 a month, you don't need to do a 5-day event. You can just pop in and do a 1 hour webinar. And so for a 1 hour webinar, we may say, hey, we only need 2 weeks of promotion or 7 days of promotion, just depending on your audience and what resources you have. Okay, cool. We're going to set this out. The date's going to be, we need 2 to 3 weeks for building this machine. And then we need 2 weeks for promotion. So we're going to set the date out a month. And so from there, we set the commitment and then we start building the machine. And I know that's a lot. I'm speaking fast, but we always work backwards. Set the main goal, find out the main goal, and then work backwards from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes sense. And then talk about the aspects of what you handle then, because you're obviously marketing, doing the event and all that stuff, but you guys are pretty much like, is it just, hey, here's the presentation. We worked on it with you. You practice it, show up, do your thing. We handle the rest. Or what does somebody that is working with you have to actually do on their side?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we do a lot of different things for different people because everybody has different teams. Some people have no team. So for somebody to come to us that they don't have a team at all and that we are their team, we do everything. We'll set up your sales funnel, meaning your landing pages. We help you craft your presentation. We'll build out your emails, your text messages, your graphics for promotion, everything leading up to the webinar. You actually have to perform the webinar, obviously.
Right.
We even, in some cases, provide a sales team. So if you need a sales team to come in, we'll actually help you sell your products after the event and try to close deals. But most of the time with our clients that come to us, we're their marketing and sales team. They just pretty much are the face for marketing. And then they show up and teach on that class and make the pitch. And we do the rest.
Nice. So, and then you take a cut of the sales, I take it. That's how it works.
Yeah. Depending on the partnership and how it's structured, we have some deals where we do a set price per month, but then other times we have it to where we're taking a percentage of sales, just depending on the opportunity and who it is. But that's kind of customized to each client. But I'll say this: it's really cool because I've seen a lot of people. We have multiple products and multiple services, and I'm not here to talk about primarily what we sell. But I'll say this: we've had a lot of people we've just consulted and we've kind of mentored, and we didn't even put our systems into their business ourselves. They just implemented it through coaching and they found success. So one thing I would encourage anybody listening to this is ask, which area do I want to grow in, and how can I find a coach in that area? It doesn't even have to be marketing or sales. It could be public speaking. It could be you want to get better at something completely different in your business and in your life. But one thing I've found, obviously, because I'm a testament to apprenticeship, is finding a good mentor can change everything. For real.
No, I can't agree more with that statement either. So, all right. So people hearing this, they get it. They get and understand, the power of the event. The challenge for everybody is generating lead flow for events, right? I think everybody would be like, look, if there was 1,000 people on an event or 500 people or 100 people or whatever, every week that I could go to, I could make sales and so on, right? But that's the challenge. So what are some of the best practices on promoting, generating lead flow for events?
Man, I love that question because that's one of the most frequently asked questions I get is how do I get people to show up, right? There's two factors to it. One, you have the initial lead generation. And then second, it's like once you get the lead, how do you make sure they actually show up, right? Because you got so many days, you may have 7 days, 14 days before the actual event. So let's talk about the initial lead generation. Number one, start with what you have. And you may say, Michael, I don't have much at all. Still start with what you have. And you may say, Michael, I don't have any at all. Okay, let's come up with a game plan. But start with what you have. Even if it is a small Facebook group, a small Facebook list, a small email list, use what you have, because I've had people, they've ran events with 10, 15 people, but because it was the right people in the room, they went to make $40,000 or $50,000, right? So it's not always about the quantity of the people in the room, but more about the quality of the people in the room. But I'll say start with what you have. So start with all those. But one strategy, Dave, that I really love for beginning business owners that want to leverage virtual events is partnerships. Partnerships and joint ventures are amazing. And so David, whenever I was in apprentice with him, that's how we grew to $750,000 in 10 months. It wasn't through ads. It wasn't through all these fancy campaigns. It was literally going to people who had our audience, serving their audience, and splitting the sales. So as an example, we said, okay, what resources do we have? What do we not have? We said, okay, we have an amazing product. We have an amazing message, amazing offerings. And we said, but we don't have people in the seats. We don't have butts in the seats.
Mm-hmm.
So we said, okay, how can we start building relationships with people who have our potential audience? So in this scenario, we were in a real estate education company. So that's what we did. We taught people real estate. And so we said, okay, who has people who would love to hear and learn about investing? And so one of our first individuals we partnered with, he was a wealth coach, AKA kind of like a Dave Ramsey. It was not Dave Ramsey, but something very similar. He taught how to manage your money. And so we said, this is perfect. What happens after people get their money under control? They need to learn how to invest it right. So we went to them and we started running events to his list. We started running events to their audience. And that partnership alone made us probably $300,000 to $400,000 just by serving and going and running events to his list. And so we did that over and over. We've done it probably 10 to 15 times because I still help David a little bit in his business. But we've had 10 or 15 partnerships where we just came in, we presented to their audiences, made an offer and split the sales. But in order for you to do that, you need to have this. You need to have a win-win-win scenario. First off, it has to be a win for the other person's audience. You can't just come in, be spammy, be all salesy. It has to be a win for their audience. And so that's what we did. We came in and truly added deep value. We served, we taught with our hearts, like with passion. But the second, it has to be a win for the partner. Like they're not going to show up probably for 2 or 3% of the sales. They're going to want probably a big chunk. So make sure that the partnership, despite, that every relationship is going to be a little bit different, but you need to talk with them and say, hey, what would make this worth it for you? They may say, hey, it may be 20% of all sales, maybe 30%, 40%. You get to customize that. But then also you need to make sure, don't skip out on yourself. You need to make sure it's a win for you as well. And that was one thing that took our business to the next level, Dave. So that's a hack right there. If somebody wants to really elevate fast with no audience.
Yeah, that's another really great point. In fact, in our investing education business, we do events on almost a monthly basis, and they're usually through partners. And there's for our products and services, there's a revenue share for that, and it works out really, really well. We give great service, great content to the event that's itself, and to the customers that come in, and we thank them for helping get people there. So that is just a wonderful way to grow a business. It used to be more the norm. And I think nowadays that people forget on it some because there's all these other things out there like social media and everything else. But the best leads to be in front of are, warm leads, and warm leads are ones that, somebody that, is like endorsing you is bringing to the table and stuff. And so I think partnerships, JVs are, really, something that should be part of everybody's arsenal, no matter what type of business, or whether if you're even doing a virtual event, you should have, being that from a sales aspect. So, good stuff there. What are some of the essential tools and platforms that you recommend for hosting online events?
Yeah, great question. I try to keep it simple, you all. A lot of people, they try to overcomplicate things. And what happens is sometimes complexity leads to less sales. So what I do is whenever it actually comes to running virtual events, I try to use Zoom as much as possible. If we're looking to make a virtual event and automate it in the future, meaning where that event runs without me ever having to be there, we'll look at softwares like Webinar Jam or Webinar Geek. There's also Webinar Fuel. But that's for the actual streaming. But if it's a live event, I love Zoom because you can see their faces, and there's something about that personal connection where you could call out Dave and say, hey, Dave, I see you're here with your camera on. Awesome. Hey, Jill. There's something about that. So don't make it more complex than it has to be. But number two, I'll say for actually like software of like landing pages and things of that nature, I use High Level. You can go to gohighlevel.com and find out more about that software, but it's a all-in-one solution where you can email, you can text, You can build funnels. You can have a sales CRM in it. It's simple. It's cost efficient, simple, and you can build out everything you need for your virtual events inside of those platforms.
Nice. Are there any other engagement type tools and stuff that you recommend people have or do for like nurturing these leads ahead of time?
Yeah, great question. I mean, a big piece of nurturing people, because now I remember I didn't pick up on that earlier. One of the things that I think a lot of people miss out on is that engagement prior to the event, right? It's like you got the leads now through the partnerships, through the plays that you taught Michael and Dave. How do I make sure they show up? It's not so much about just communicating them with them just to communicate with them. It's more about, hey, how can I build out really intentional content they receive prior to the event? So what we do is we'll use like the Go High Level software to send them emails, send them texts before the event, not only to remind them, but to send them case studies, to send them testimonials of people who are winning with our software or our service. Maybe curate some content around helping them overcome some self-limiting beliefs, right? There's many different things we'll do. And then we have some other softwares like for giveaways, like there's one called Gleam. It's Gleam. We use Gleam for like some giveaways, some sweepstakes. You can get them like to take certain actions. Like, hey, if you do XYZ, if you do this homework, we're going to give you points. If you, like us on Facebook, or if you subscribe to our YouTube, we'll give you points. So Gleam is a good one. I really like that. But other than that, we try to keep it, again, simple, because simple is scalable, and simple for those that just starting out is going to be the best route.
No, that makes a lot of sense too. I want to ask you a little bit about your entrepreneur journey before we get to your Misfit 3, because we're coming to the end of our time. So I guess for me, it's always, what are the unique things that somebody's learned as they've come up as an entrepreneur, right? So from your perspective, what are, 2 or 3 things that you feel are critical elements for success that you found in your entrepreneur journey that you think have made a big difference for you?
Yeah, one of them that came to my mind immediately, and this is more personable for me, I guess, but maybe somebody out there needs to hear this, is just knowing your self-worth and the worth of your business. That one made a big difference, whenever I realized that, because whenever I first started out and I was working with David in this apprenticeship and people started coming to us and saying, hey, we want you to run our virtual events, I was charging like $1,000, $750, $1,200, but people were going to make $100,000 in one event. They were making $200,000, maybe even more in some cases. And I kept that pricing for a long time. And it was, again, going back to my self-worth and my confidence in myself. So if you're here listening, one of the things I said, once I got that and I understood how valuable my skills were, how valuable my message was, once I understood that, I was then able to charge more confidently, right? And ultimately that had a increase in my income. That had an increase in, what I could do for my team. So I think if you're here, just one thing I would say is don't undercharge. Listen, know your worth. You can definitely charge premium because you are premium. And then the last one I'll say here is don't get caught thinking in the short term. And this is, again, something so simple, but what I see a lot of clients when we work with them, they run their first virtual event and then they're like, oh, this one we didn't make as much as I thought. They still found a win, right? But know that, especially with virtual events, we were talking about putting in the reps earlier. It's one of those things that over time, as you get better at speaking, as you get better at marketing your product, as you get your mission dialed in, it will grow. It will progress. You look at some of our clients that are really successful. I look back, they were making YouTube videos and they were running events 12 or 13 years ago, y'all. That was like, that's crazy to me, thinking that like 12, they've been doing this for 12 to 15 years. So commit to the process and remember that it's not about the short term, but about the macros, the long term of it. And so those are just 2 simple things. I know they're not really based around virtual events, but it's more, how can we get you to the finish line? So I think it's helpful.
That last one about, really what you're saying is obviously you're playing the long game. It's really a recurring theme of Misfit entrepreneurs that come on the show that are successful. Okay, it's time for Michael's Misfit 3. These are the 3 things that he wants you to take that you can put in your life, your business, make a difference for yourself starting today. And the way that I always frame this to every guest that comes on the show is I say, hey, look, if you're going to leave this earth tomorrow and you could only leave behind your 3 best pieces of wisdom for the generations that come after you to help them live their best life, what would those 3 things be? So, Michael, what are your Misfit 3?
That's one thing that and it kind of, again, plays off your question, but realize that you're not promised a day, right? You're not promised a minute, an hour. And so one of the things, recently in my life, just seeing people close to me pass, people, family, friends, leave this earth, is don't leave this world without giving it your all and leaving it all on the playing field. And just remember that you're not promised tomorrow, and there's somebody out there that needs to hear your message. There's somebody out there that needs to hear your voice. And so I encourage everybody I speak to is like, hey, before you leave this earth, leave it all out there. Leave that message out in the world. Instill it into somebody's life. Instill it into somebody's mind, because you never know, your message, even if it just changes one person, wouldn't it be worth it? And in my eyes, it is, yes. And so that's the one thing I would say, and that's a little bit more deep. It's just, let's find a way to leave it all out there. Does that make sense, or does that, because that kind of played off your question?
No, so, that makes sense. Gotcha. But it's Misfit 3, so 2 more.
I got you. So not only lay it all out there, but I'll say whenever it comes to business on that side of things, realize, and this is, again, going back to the long game, realize that marketing and sales is different for everybody. Okay. So let me say this: marketing and sales is different for everybody. Okay. So when you're building this entrepreneurial journey, when you're on this entrepreneurial journey, I should say, don't get caught comparing yourselves to other people. Now, it's good to, it's good to compete. It's good to analyze your competitors. It's good to analyze the people that you like and you want to model, but don't get caught thinking that their journey is your journey, because you're unique. Your situation is unique. And so don't leave this earth thinking, I wish I was like them, or, I wish I would have done it the Alex Hermosi way or the Dave way, because marketing and sales is going to be different in your business. The way you spread your message is going to be different, but it's unique to you. Okay. It's unique to you. And so the last thing I'll say is this: get good at one skill. The one thing that took Dave from where he was to where he is now is he got good at one skill. He got like really good. Like I could probably say, Dave, what is that one skill that you got really, really good at? That you got really, really good at, and he would be able to tell you, right? So for me, that one skill was virtual events. And so it kind of goes hand with the other two. But you want to make sure that you get good at one skill, because you can do a lot more good in the world. You can impact more lives. You can serve more people when you are great at one thing, right? And people say, "Oh, I'm good at everything. I'm a master of a lot of things." Awesome. But if you truly want to make an impact, you have to dive into one area. If you truly want to be great and you want to be known, you have to get great at one thing. So ask yourself, what is that one thing for me? For me, it was virtual events. For me, it was a little bit of digital marketing, but I'll say virtual events is one. I know for some of my friends, they're great at advertising, which I am not. Some of my friends are great at public speaking, right? On the flip side, they may be good at baseball, basketball. There's people that play professionally. So just ask yourself, what can I get great at so that I can leave a better imprint on this world?
Folks, that is an excellent Misfit 3 from Michael. At the end, we had a little bit of technical difficulties. So I'm going to finish up. I just want to say to everyone who attended this episode, who listened to this episode, and watch this episode, thank you so much for all of your support and everything you do. And for those of you that are new to Misfit Nation, welcome. It is such an honor to have you with us. Thank you for watching and listening. And I hope you become a regular listener and subscriber. For all of you that, again, are with us week in and week out, I cannot thank you enough for your support of the show. You are what makes this go in over 100 countries every single week. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And make sure and go out and check out the show notes for this episode. They are the best in the business. Why? Because I do them myself. As part of my personal growth routine, every single week I go back through these episodes and I pull my best pieces of content and tips and tricks and different things that I think are really valuable to you. So go out and check those out and put them into your personal growth routine. And then give this episode a rating and review, like and comment on it. Help share Michael's message, because we all know, and I say this in every episode, a great episode can change someone's life. And maybe something that Michael shared in this episode today was that missing link you were looking for to get to your next level. So share this with others. And again, I just want to thank Michael for coming on, sharing all of his wisdom, his insight, and everything in this episode. And I'll see you in the next one.